there is so much artistry, not just technology, but artistry in games. So much artistry. And any actor who looks down at video games has not had a chance to really be...
To play,
either as a player or to play as an actor on the volume or even in the studio. There's so much to be done. There's so much richness there, and there's so much satisfaction. And on top of all of that, the community is so extraordinary.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Skills Hub. Whether you're a complete beginner or a seasoned professional, Skills Hub has everything you need to kickstart and advance your voice acting career. We love Skills Hub. Cannot recommend it enough. With personalized plans designed to fit your goals and aspirations, you can confidently navigate your journey in the world of voiceover. Learn which avenues best suit your unique skills and discover different ways to monetize your voice talents. From commercials to video games to audiobooks to animation, sky's the limit. Practice and refine your craft with expert-designed tools such as character development, accent mastery, or script interpretation. Connect directly with more than 80 vetted coaches who are top industry pros, casting directors, voice directors, and working actors to receive valuable feedback and guidance. Skills Hub is more than just a platform. It's a thriving community of voice actors, and with per-minute billing, you're in control of how much you spend. Track your progress, communicate with coaches, connect with the community, and stay motivated. Don't wait any longer to advance your voice acting career. Visit skillshub.life/character-select today to pick your path and get 20% off your first 3 months. Skills Hub. Come for the access. Stay for the community. Hello, and welcome to Character Select. I am Anjali Bhimani. Ta-da! This is...
Oh, is that my cue?
Yes, when I put my hands towards you and present you like Vanna White or Anja Brown, that is your cue.
She's teaching me. I'm Julia Bianco Schoeffling.
And we are very, very excited to be here to talk about performances in games and all of the variety of amazing people and amazing elements that go into those performances that you may not already know about if you're not in the gaming industry or even if you are in the gaming industry. How has your last couple of weeks been? It's been a minute since we've been here.
It has been crazy.
It has been crazy.
We're wrapping up the year here. Everybody's trying to get their games done, and it's been busy.
Busy good, though, hopefully.
Busy good. Lots of award shows, galas.
Yes.
Holiday parties.
Yes, and lots of very cool stuff for help. Lots of very cool stuff. You guys did you have Christmas things coming. You have all sorts of fun stuff coming.
All sorts of surprises, too.
Shh, don't tell anybody. It's a surprise. There's a surprise that's coming. Shh, don't tell anybody. Anjali, stop talking. Well, the surprise that we have for you here today is a very exciting guest that we have been talking about getting on the show since we first conceived of the show, which is something that they don't know, but now they do. They didn't know. Specifically because of what the show is about and about what goes specifically into performances and making those come alive from the page to the game. Today, we have performance director Tom Keegan in the house. Woo. Hello.
Hi.
I'm going to read Tom's bio so that we can potentially embarrass him and make him feel like $1 million all at the same time. Tom Keegan is one of the world's top performance directors for video games. His work includes AAA franchises, including Battlefield, Star Wars, Wolfenstein, Call of Duty, Resident Evil, Need for Speed, Mirror's Edge, VR titles, Archangel, and Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. I wasn't prepared with a good breath for that one. He received a BAFTA nomination for his work on Wolfenstein: The New Colossus, and his products have won multiple BAFTAs, Game Awards, and the Golden Joystick. Born in New York City, Tom holds a degree in theater from Adelphi University. Shout out to theater people! Mm-hmm. He made many appearances in the downtown New York City experimental theater and movement scene as an actor and director, creating and performing original material through personal stories, characters, flowers, fruit, spray paint, and live electricity. And we're definitely going to circle back to that part. After moving to Los Angeles, Tom worked in animation development at Hanna-Barbera on shows such as Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, and Cow and Chicken. In 1998, he began working on CD-ROMs such as Blaster, Jumpstart, and the ever-popular Barbie, before moving on to the action genre in classic games such as Chronicles of Riddick and The Darkness. I feel like you have to say The Darkness, like The Darkness. The Darkness.
You have to say it like this, The Darkness.
I remember that game so
The Darkness. And has worked on over 50 game titles. Tom's work also includes film. His short, Sweet Life, is part of the Frameline New Voices collection, has won awards at festivals and been shown on television internationally. His feature documentary, Out in India, A Family's Journey, which is fascinating, won the jury prize at the Torino LGBT Film Festival, among other awards. As a director, Tom is actor-focused. I can confirm this from being in class with him. He's brilliant. Tom is actor-focused, and Anjali is not focused. Tom is actor-focused. He combines his decades of experience and study in acting, movement, and directing to bring out the best in performers. He works deeply with his development teams to find the subtext and nuances in game scripts and achieve the team's goals in the performance capture volume and voiceover booth. He frequently lectures at development studios and game conferences on performance and storytelling. Tom.
I'm exhausted. Can I nap now?
So, since we first talked about doing character select, you were, as I mentioned, like top of the list, specifically because of what you do and how you do it. I was lucky enough to not only get to audition for you many times, but get to be in class with you and really be a part of you bringing the best out of actors in a classroom setting, which is so much different than necessarily what we have to do when we're in the volume or in the booth, and it's so much more freeing. And I'd love to start by talking about your theater background, because it's very clear when working with you that that's where you begin. That's your first language, and I'm that way too, because that's my first language. So when someone starts speaking it, I get very excited. How did you decide to get started in the theater? Like, when did that hit you?
Well, I like to say I was born in a trunk, as the expression goes, which came from vaudeville, right? I don't know. It's one of those things. I used to have this thing about, I called it a school play day. And that was any day where there was going to be some kind of a play, a rehearsal, anything. And that was the day that your feet hit the floor and you can't wait to go. Oh. And it's in my family a little bit. My grandmother was a singer. She sang with Tommy Dorsey. Oh. My father also sang, was an amateur community theater actor. Some of my cousins are in the business as well. So it was sort of circulating around, but nobody would ever go for it. And it was one of those things where it was like, there's really nothing else I could do. I mean, I had absolutely no interest in anything else. And I started when I was in high school. Where
did you go to high school?
I went to Niskayuna High School in Schenectady, New York. Even though we're really from the New York area. Mm-hmm. I grew up, my parents are from the Bronx, and I lived in the Bronx when I was a kid. And but we had this weird sojourn to upstate New York for 3 years. And so I went to high school there. And then after that is when I went to Adelphi. I went back to the New York area. But, New York is a theater town also. Mm-hmm. And then when I was in, I studied as an actor. And in fact, in high school, I was in this little Shakespeare troupe. There was a woman in our town who had gone to RADA in London and had put together a little thing of Shakespeare scenes with high school kids. And we had a little troupe, and we would go around to other schools and perform them. Cute. And with a little bit of contemporary theater, a little bit of like Waiting for Godot and Ionesco. And one time the school called and they were like, he's doing really great in some subjects, but he's like flunking out of math and science. And my mother was like, okay, you have to do better in school. And I was like, I have a show today. And she was like, oh, no, you don't. And I was like, oh, yes, I do. Oh, wow. And I was, I left and I was like, I'm hitching to the show. Like, we have a show. And of course, I got my mother, school called and they're like, your son's absent. She's like, that's funny. He went to school today. And,
no covering for you.
No covering.
Just threw you out
covering.
there.
So, I fought my way to up the hill. But then in college, and then after college, I actually got into dance, which I always loved moving through space. And I saw ballet when I was in high school, and I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. But there was no way. I was already suspect, because I wasn't a ball guy. And
ball guy.
Yeah. But when I got
games.
to college, I started doing dance and mime and stuff like that. And so I got into movement. And then when I graduated college, I was living in New York. And I was doing a lot of dance work and also theater and experimental theater. And I became part of, with my partner then, my now husband, we started doing kind of queer personal work in the scene on the Lower East Side and performance art scene of the 80s in New York City. So, and we also did crazy stuff like we had a little day job doing something called hospital audiences. And I swear that is where I learned the most. What, you did hospital audiences?
I think if it's the same thing, the
Yeah.
same thing that I'm thinking of, where you are the sort of the patient who's going through something.
No.
Okay.
We would get a car for the day. They would give us a car, and we would go out to basically. They had kind of halfway houses for psychiatric patients in the community, and we would go out and do little shows, our own material. And I mean, basically they'd unlock the doors, shove us in, lock the doors, and we'd do a little show. And I mean, my God, you have to be focused. No matter what's going on, you have to be focused. You have to go with the moment. And I really feel like that's where I got to do like some of the most amazing theater.
God, I thought that doing like live improv in front of drunk college students was hard, but that's something else.
It was a challenge. And then I did a lot of other theater. My first equity job in the union, I worked with a woman named Jean Erdman and her husband Joseph Campbell, the Joseph Campbell,
Wow.
hero of 1,000 Faces. The hero's journey, right? They had a little theater on the Upper East Side, and I did this show based on James Joyce, a sort of movement theater show with them. And so anyway, that's theater. That's my background in theater. So performance capture is I always say it's like theater with film takes in a way, although it's maybe like theater with some occasional close-ups, but it's not film takes because most of the time you're doing a master. You're doing a full scene with no stops, no cuts. So you have to know your lines. Everybody has to be really good in every take, right? Because any edit you do, there's so many streams of data, right? That you have to cut the face, you have to cut the body, you have to cut the voice, and then you have to put all that back together. So it's been a great thing for me.
Yeah, it's such a. I'm interested in when the transition happened and how the transition happened, because obviously, like you said, the art forms are very similar in terms of what the actors have to do.
Yeah.
With the exception of the fact that you're wearing a unitard with balls stuck to it and a camera on your head. It's
Right.
very much like doing theater. Although, depending on the kind of theater that you've done, maybe you did that in that outfit too. It's possible. It's very
right?
Blue Man Group.
Totally. Yeah.
But I'm interested in what the transition process was going from working in theater to games.
Well, it was interesting because in between that, I had a day job at a little animation company. So friends of mine out in the valley had a little animation company. They were doing cell animation. They were sending it off to China, and the cells would come back. And it's funny because I was the computer guy, and that was in the days when you could be the computer guy if you knew how to work it. Right? So, and that's how they ran out of money, but one of the partners there had a girlfriend who was the head of development, Ellen Cockrell, at Hanna-Barbera. And so I got into story development and animation, and then through that I got this job. I saw this ad in the Hollywood Reporter, like, have you done voiceover? Have you done kids stuff? Do you know animation? Have you done theater? And I was like, yeah. And I got this job in kids educational software. So that was Jumpstart and Math Blaster, stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Okay, so Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Johnny Bravo.
Yeah, Johnny
What
Bravo.
was the
Cow and
other
Chicken.
one? Cow and
Cow and Chicken.
This is my youth.
No,
here.
These
are mine.
Forget about my youth. Like, I remember loving the Powerpuff Girls when I was in my 20s. Like, loving it then, too.
Oh, yeah,
like,
right?
It was
Yeah, my job was to do all the Bibles and stuff and take new pitches and look at the stories that came in from the writers. That was really the most fun job. But then they got sold to Time Warner and we all got fired.
Oh my gosh.
Basically. Yeah. But
So that into games then.
yeah, and then when I got into games, and then we had, this is so weird. We got a license to do an American Idol game, right? When American Idol came out, right? Only we didn't have the singing license, so we had a dance license, right? So what you would did was you would try to do it. You would do a song, and it was really more about hitting the beats, right? In the early days of when the system could kind of say whether you were on the beat or whether you were late, and if you did, you'd win a move. And they said there's this new thing called motion capture, and who can we get? Somebody who knows dance who could get a choreographer and make pieces of dance that came back to a central still point so that when you won a piece of a dance, you could play it with a song and whatever pieces you had won would fit together. And I was like, I can totally do that. Yeah. So I got a choreographer and we went to House of Moves.
Yep. They're still work with them today.
And we did this shoot and I looked around and I was like, I could so do this.
Yeah.
I could so do this. And right around that same time, The Darkness came up.
I remember that.
And the Swedish company that was doing it, they were part of Starbreeze then, and they said, we're going to do this thing called vocap, where we're going to do some motion capture and voice and voice together. And I was like, I've done motion. You did one. You were like, you'd done it. You were trained,
expert,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Totally, you're the guy.
So I was like, hey, I've done it. And they said, the only thing is, you have to sort of start your own company. And I was like, well, I'm about to leave this company anyway. And I started my own thing. And then I just decided I'm going to pursue this because it's so much fun. It's so great. It's so much like theater. It's so much about movement. It's so much about voice. And really, that's just kind of been snowballing since then.
It's so cool to listen to your full story up to that point, too, because it's such a perfect example of the integration of all of the things you love into one.
I prayed for that,
medium.
man. I just prayed. I was like, I want to bring this together. Come on, universe. Like,
Yep.
I want to bring all the streams together, and it took a long time. But I always tell people I'm like, like young students or if I lecture in a university or something, I'm like, just open the next door. Just keep doing what you're doing, but keep opening the next door because this technology didn't even exist when I was in drama school.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just amazing how it came about. So you just don't even know, what your talents. Yeah, I mean, there's so much. Even like my daughter graduated from college, right? And even the college president at the commencement was like, you don't know if what you're going to be training in is what you're going to be doing. But nowadays, it's like, learn a lot of different things because you don't know in which way technology, in which way industry, in which way where the jobs are going to go.
Yeah. And you might end up being the innovator. If you learn all of these things and there's a thing you want to create, you might actually be the person at the forefront of that, creating the thing that everybody else then jumps on. You might be a part of that, like you were the motion capture
Well,
guy.
there are so many tools now, too, that individual people, with YouTube,
Yes,
with TikTok.
free education everywhere.
There's so many free education, but also outlets. You can just make your own outlet. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
My cousin, this is really funny. My cousin Chris Conley is a journalist. He's on he's on ESPN. He interviews a lot of big celebrities, Barb Streisand, all these people. And we used to play media. And we would be in our bedroom making teletype machines and recording plays on cassette recorders. And then we got into, I almost would call it early hacking, but we created this fake mystery writer called Anita Go Bra. And we thought it was hilarious because it had the word bra in it. And
I'm
we
laughing.
made
I'm a
up her
12-year-old boy.
titles,
Pretty
and
cute.
purposely we tried to find the blandest titles. And we were like, Murder Round the Clock and Murder in the Hallway. And then we called the Associated Press in our teenage voices, and we said, this is the Connolly Funeral Home. We wanted to report that mystery writer Anita Gobra has passed away.
Oh,
And we
my
actually
gosh.
got an obituary published in the New York Post.
Love this.
And it was like, we just wanted to see how far we could go.
Okay, but can we take a moment to appreciate that, like, your quote-unquote hoodlum activity
Yes.
I know, right?
was getting, like, was that creative
yeah.
and was that detailed? That is chef's kiss.
It
That
really
is
is.
so
It was
delicious.
so fun.
That's
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
Well, the same way that you have put so much love in and care into putting all of these different streams together, I would love to talk about the performance that you pulled
Yes.
here for us to talk about, because I want to hear both about why you chose it, but also how you have been a part
Yeah.
of affecting it and creating it, because
Great.
obviously the acting is one part, but that's all of us actors are one cog in a very large wheel. So we are going to talk about the role of Cere from Fallen Order. It's no wonder that when Respawn Entertainment was looking for a tenacious and sage mentor type with a commanding voice to play Cere Junda in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, that they decided on veteran actor and comedian Deborah Wilson to fill the role. In November of 2019, the rest of the world found out what they already knew, that Wilson was more than ready to enter the Star Wars canon as the troubled soul of ex-Jedi Cere Junda in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Junda's first appearance in the Star Wars universe was in Jedi Fallen Order Dark Temple, a canon tie-in comic miniseries that served as a prequel to Fallen Order. While Junda started as a conflicted self-exiled Jedi, by her following appearance in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, she developed into a determined and wise fighter who reclaims her Jedi title and strives for redemption for her past transgressions. Wilson has unsurprisingly been praised by gaming outlets and fans for bringing an incredible amount of depth and complexity to the role of the character through her voice performance and motion capture. Junda is the first and so far the only black female Jedi to appear in the Star Wars video games? Anjali asks with a big question mark. Amazing. Also, just some fun facts. Fallen Order had 2 secret working titles while in development, Rowboat and Bird Dog. I like Bird Dog.
Where'd you get that?
The internet is magic. And
Oh,
shout
wow.
out to our research
Yeah.
assistant, Amanda, because she's amazing. Junda's initial character model and had heavy scarring and a cane as a result of the torture received by the Imperial forces, but much of this was left out of her final design. And she also appears in Jedi Battle Scars, a canon novel that takes place between Fallen Order and Survivor.
I think that's written by Sam Maggs.
Say that again?
I said I think that's written by Sam Maggs.
Oh, look at that.
I'm gonna go out on the limb there and say.
All right.
All right.
We'll fact check it later. We'll find out. So, let's take a moment. Deborah Wilson.
Deborah.
Discuss.
By
Because
the way,
she's Deborah
okay,
Wilson.
Yes, and I spoke to her today, and I told her I was going to be doing this, and she was very delighted to hear about it. Yeah, because also you don't want to have somebody analyzing your performance and then just hear about it. And Deborah, I would say, is like one of my muses. I think she's been in almost everything I've done. She's so incredibly talented and gifted and giving and passionate as an actor and so positive. Whenever I say, hi, how are you? She goes, I'm grateful.
Yes,
Yeah.
she does.
I called her today. I'm like, how are you, Deborah? She goes, I'm grateful. I'm like, awesome. So great.
Yeah. She is a force, like a force of nature. I remember I met her for the first time this year, and then we worked together on a couple of things. And just, it's not just that she's such a positive force as a performer. She's just got an incredible outlook on life that is so full, and on the universe that's so
Yeah.
full, that she
Yeah.
obviously brings to everything that she does. So it's not surprising to me that the two of you clicked really, really well as well.
I think the first project I worked with her on was right after the project that we worked on. So we worked
Oh,
on
wow.
Call of Duty, and I worked on Spider-Man with her, and right after that. So she's one of the most present people
Yeah, very
that I've
present, yeah.
ever met, and I think there's something so remarkable. And I'm sure when she shows up on set, it's almost like having a perfectly blank slate with all of the tools in the universe. And
She does this amazing thing, which is, I don't know, she kind of made this vow that she would do like 100,000 acts of kindness. So she brings big bags of like necklaces and things to set that she's made. Like she brought, I have a little Jedi lightsaber, a glow-in-the-dark Jedi lightsaber on a little chain. She brings little necklaces and bracelets and things like that and gives them away. I mean, she's the most remarkable, kind, and really loving person. I just adore working with her. And then when she got the role, now I just wanted to also say that there were incredible actors that auditioned for this role as well,
sure.
and any one of them could have been absolutely brilliant because it's an incredible role, really incredible role. And so the writers did an amazing job, just formulating the character and bringing it out. And one of the things that I always do at the beginning when I'm working on a character is to create what I call the spine, right? And so the spine to me is the action, the driving verb, right? The driving action that a character wants to accomplish at this point in their life. And I pulled out my notebook.
Okay, for those of you who are just listening, I wish, please go to the YouTube and see this notebook because this is the stuff. This is the stuff of genius.
Yes.
I just want, this is the stuff that gets me excited to work with someone like Tom Keegan.
So I did some brains. So what I do is I start with the facts about the character. And also I just want to say that one of the biggest influences in my career has been Judith Weston, who is a directing teacher. I was very fortunate to study with her for at least a decade or more.
Wow.
And she's been a huge influence and supporter on me. And so I learned about that from Judith, but start with the facts. So I start with the facts. And so I wrote that Cere, have 45 female Jedi seeker, trained but sworn off the Force. And then what I do, so I always start with the facts of a character. And here I have Cal under here, I have Marin, I have all the characters. And for her, I brainstormed the things. So I said, so my actions for her spine were to find the list, to protect young Jedi, to restore your self-respect, to absolve yourself of your sins, to regain the trust of the Order, to forgive yourself, to find absolution, to revive the Jedi, to rekindle. And really what I kind of boiled down to is redemption. So if you don't know the game, Cere is a Jedi, and at the beginning of the game, there's this young Jedi, Cal, right, who's been living in hiding on a planet, working as a scrapper. And his powers are really starting to show themselves. And he makes a couple of mistakes by, like, helping to save people, and people begin to recognize he has some kind of power, and it's outlawed to be a Jedi. And in the meantime, there's this craft flying around with Cere and her co-pilot Grease, and her mission is to try to find any remaining or surviving Jedi, especially young Jedi, and protect them. And she's been scouring the universe, and she finds out that there's a Jedi on this planet, and they just happen to be flying by when Cal is getting into a life and death battle with an Inquisitor, with one of Darth Vader's Inquisitors who's been sent out and has also gotten rumors that there's a Jedi on this planet. And he's in a life and death battle with her, and Cere, with her kind of funky craft and co-pilot, they sweep down and they literally are able to rescue him and snatch him off the planet, right? And so it's a wonderful scene when we first encounter her and first encounter each other, and because Cal's sort of like, thanks for saving me. What do you want? Like, who are you? What are you doing here? And I had this, I described it to the cast as kind of, I have this thing I say that all experience is local. And so even the most grand sci-fi experience, you have to boil it down to something local, something playable, something piece by piece that's human. And so I said, it's kind of like somebody's trying to kill you, and a white van pulls up, and you jump in, and they drive off, and you go like, thanks for saving me, but okay, can you let me out now? What do you want? And they're like, we know about you, and we're actually here to help you. And to Cere and Grease, I was like, it's like if you saw a wounded animal and you pulled them into your car, and then you just want to get them to calm down. You don't want to get them anything. But she had this line, like he says, what do you want? And she says, well, we just want you to get settled. I don't remember the exact thing, but she says, we want you to get settled. And really, there's nothing at stake here except possibly the revival of the Jedi Order. And then that's the end of the cinematic. But I was like, you can't play it like, and only the revival of the Jedi Order. I'm like, if the moment is wild dog, wounded person, you just go, no big deal. Maybe something about the Jedi Order, but whatever. And that was kind of our approach through the whole thing, was like, she has secrets. Yeah. So it turns out, okay, spoiler, right? Like we can spoil because it's out. And the second one's out.
Spoiler alert.
So the spoiler alert is that in her background, she was a Jedi, and she had a Padawan named Trilla, and they were captured by Darth Vader. She was captured by Darth Vader, and Darth Vader tortured her, and she gave up Trilla's name. And then and then she used the dark side to break out, but Trilla was captured and turned into an Inquisitor, which is basically like having her soul taken away and turned 100% to the dark side as a slave of Darth Vader. And so it turns out that the Inquisitor that was following Cal and trying to get Cal was Trilla, was her Padawan. And it makes Cere really crazy at the beginning that it's like, Trilla, does he know? Does anybody know? Because she's sworn off being a Jedi. She's sworn off using any Jedi power. And so she's trying to get, the drama in it is she's trying to get Cal to trust her, but she's not telling him the whole story. Right. And he keeps finding out things about her, which then it's sort of like he starts to trust her and they go on missions together. But then he finds out things that like breaks his trust. Like, hey, so he has a battle with Trilla, and she says something about Cere, and then he comes back, and they have this wonderful scene. It was one of my favorite scenes. It's this family dinner. And he comes up, and Grease is this like six-armed character with this kind of funny voice. And they're having this dinner, and Grease has like made this thing, and Cal comes on, and they're having the classic thing where Cere's sort of like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And he's eating, and Grease is like, oh boy, this maybe it doesn't have enough salt. And Cal's kind of like, I ran into somebody today. And Cere's like, oh, who's that? And he's like, maybe just someone who used to be your Padawan. And it literally is like the classic like teenager that finds out some of your parents' shit, right? That they've managed to hide from you while pretending to be something else. Right. So there were all these like wonderful tensions in it, and so then it goes on. They do many things. And one of my other favorite scenes. Then should I just go on like this?
Yes, I have a ton of questions already, but I don't want to stop your flow.
Well, one of my other most favorite scenes, and I love this story because it was a great example of great performers. So there's a scene where they're in Darth Vader's fortress, and Trilla and Cere have the confrontation, right? That you gave me up, you abandoned me, and. I get so emotional because it was so real. And Deborah, and Trilla was down. She was wounded, and Deborah gets down, and she was sobbing, and she's going, forgive me, please, can't you forgive me? And Trilla's just like, why? So I'm like, cut, and we used to have this thing where, depending on the time, we had cards of red, green, and yellow, depending on how much time we have for the scene. So we're in green. Cut. I'm like, it's not quite working because Trilla, are you feeling because if the action of the scene is for her to get Trilla to forgive her, I'm like, you feel anything like forgiving her? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay, let's do it again. Deborah, your action is to get her to forgive you. So what do you need to do for her genuinely? And Elizabeth Grujon, who's an amazing actor, what do you need to do to get Elizabeth to really feel that she could forgive you? So she's begging and pleading her, and I'm like, cut, now we're in yellow, right? And I'm like, okay, come on, let's keep going. So I took Deborah aside, and I was like, Deborah, you have to, all that emotion is amazing, but you have to hold it back. Because if you're having all the emotion, then Trilla, there is no space. You're sucking it out of the air for Trilla to have the emotion. So I said, you can have all that emotion, but you've got to bury it. And you just got to, because then you're not really taking responsibility, right? If you're the one like, I couldn't help myself, forgive me. It's like, you're not really taking responsibility unless you just go, I did wrong. I did. I was wrong. What can I say? And they had the scene, and it was great. It was brilliant, right? It was really, and she was really affected. Trilla was like really affected. And I said, cut, and I was like, that was fantastic. And we had a break, and all of a sudden, I heard this bawling. Both of the actors were embracing each other, and they were just bawling because all this pent-up emotion that they had tapped into was just remarkable. It was such a... it was some powerful work. It was some really powerful work. It was great.
I love everything about this so much. There's so much to There's so much to talk about here. It's very meaty. First of all, I know that these are extraordinary actresses. I know that they are people who have who are virtuosos at their craft and using their instruments. But I also know that without that outside vantage point and someone who can translate what needs to be done in that moment to have those emotions be felt by us as the players, without your eye, without the eye of the performance director, that doesn't necessarily happen. There's a very large chance that moment doesn't happen, either the in-game moment or the moment of relief afterwards when everything is cut. Can you talk a little bit about how, like you said specifics about this moment, about what the direction, but how do you, when you're trying to connect with an actor that maybe you don't know or an actor you've never worked with or whatnot, how do you figure out what the right way is to get to people? I mean, I feel like that's the secret sauce for directing, right? Is figuring out how to communicate with your actors in a way that particular person understands. Is there something specific? Do you have a specific way that you go about this? Is it at the beginning of the process that you learn their language? One thing that I did notice when you were talking about in your notebook, you never said she has this when you were going down the list of her spine. When you're going down the list of things that she wants to do, it was all you.
Action.
It was all you. It was all
verbs.
No, but it was all you were talking with the person as the character, which is always a lovely way in. I know for me as a character, as an actor, it's always a lovely way in because we aren't talking about something that's outside of us. You're placing it inside the actor that you're working with. And so that's one way that I can think of linguistically or verbally that you're doing that with people. Are there other things that you, like other tools that you often use?
Well, I just happen to be writing a whole book about this right now.
Really?
About
what a
directing
perfect
video
segue.
But one of the things, so first of all, I think that you have to set a tone as a director of openness and collaboration, right? You have to... at the beginning of every project I sit in a circle with the principals, and I start and we go around and we just say, what is our way in to the story? What is our personal way in to the story, right? And we share. I share something about myself and my own what this story means to me, why I want to work on it. And when each person goes around, and it's sort of like we start opening up to each other. So already there's a kind of openness, right? And then, the thing is that I've done my homework. For me, that's the way I work. I have to have done my homework. So I sit with the story and I look at the facts of each character. You have to, as a director, that's why sometimes it's hard for actor directors to step out of an actor has to look at the entire story through the eyes of that character, right? There's like a famous story about the play A Streetcar Named Desire that was on Broadway, and the original production, there's a doctor that comes in the third act, right? And somebody asked the doctor, was like, well, what's this play about, Streetcar Named Desire? And he goes, well, it's about this doctor who's called to a house, right? And so the character has to see the whole story from that point of view. But the director has to see the story from every character's point of view equally, even soldier number 2 standing by the doorway, right? Like, what does this mean for them? Where does this fit in their world, and why are they there? And that's where I like to use verbs. Like, what do they want to accomplish? So what at the beginning, when I'm casting it, I sort of do this early work of what could be a candidate for their spine, their through line, the one thing they want at this point in their life from this story. And then in each scene, what do they want in the scene based on where they're going in their life, right? And, this fit with her spine perfectly because she wanted redemption. And so in this scene, part of her redemption is to get Trilla to forgive her, right? But I don't remember what Trilla's action was. I think it was to have it out with Cere, really to confront Cere, right? And so you've got one actor's action is to confront, the other actor's is to get you to forgive her. It sets up the conflict right there. And as long as you can say to them, you have to use you to accomplish this goal, but you actually have to affect the other actor. It can't be the character, it's the other actor, right? This other actor has to feel the love or the strength or whatever it is coming from you, the you of you. So it's really, as long as I have verbs, I don't have to get in there and say, be mad.
Right.
I don't have to say, she has. Nobody has anything, but there's something they can do. And so then I'll tweak the verbs, or I'll tweak the circumstances imaginarily to give them something to respond to internally.
Sure.
Right? So they're not illustrating an emotion. They're actually trying to do something in the scene.
Yeah.
Right? So that's my main way in, really.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, kind of taking a step back to looking at your whole career, the theater into animation, then all kind of synthesizing and performance capture. Is there anything that you got to do or see, especially on this game, in the volume that you wouldn't have been able to really do in film or animation or things like that? Like, is there anything that you can touch on that might have been, because we get to enter these super imaginary worlds, if you will?
Yeah.
Is there anything that might have kind of been something that even the actors, one of the things you said is that character is like multi-armed and whatnot.
Yeah.
Anything that the actors get to do to bring to life these characters that aren't really able to happen in these other kind of environments?
Well, I mean, in film you can do a lot of this stuff also, but in theater it would be more special effects. But certainly you're doing motion capture in a lot of films and stuff too. But it was funny because like with the Four Arms character, we did passes of scenes where he's doing one thing with his arms in take one, and then in take two he's doing a different things with his arms, so we can have the four arms, right? And one of the really fun things about Star Wars is, and it's hard, but you have to be really inventive, is all of that craft stuff where you're, I do 3 punches here, I pull a switch, I check outside, I look at my monitor, and
business.
It's choreography.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you've got to make it specific. You can't just go like,
Right.
you can't just go like that. You have to go, right?
Totally.
And you have to have variations on that.
Yeah.
And and then I start watching like Star Wars movies of like, oh, look at that. When they rock back and forth, they start going like this, right? There's all this stuff, and it's like, you got to have the choreography.
Yeah, I do find, just from an acting point of view, the specificity that you have to have in the volume. It's not just about like, yes, you have to be ready to do every take great, because all of this, you're getting a 360 view of me all the time. Everything's got to be right in these takes. But also the specificity of the movement has to be so much greater than necessarily we can pull off on TV and in film.
Well, it's imaginary too, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, and that too. Like one of my favorite moments talking about is on a project that we were working on where, you have the camera sticking out from your head, so it's about like a foot away from my face, but I had to drink a glass of water, and I had to pour the fake glass of water into the camera in order to get the right angle, but still be acting that experience a foot away from it. And just the specificity of those things in that technique, combined with then having to have the emotion underneath it, the spine, as you say, the action, all of that. Thank God for performance directors, and specifically for a performance director like you who can make that all happen within a safe space. Because I have to say, one of my very favorite things about coming into audition for you, when we all actually came into the room to audition, is that even though we would walk in with a limited amount of information, because you don't get that much when you're getting the audition other than the sides, even though I came in there, I knew you were going to give me enough to play. And you weren't going to give away anything I shouldn't know without an NDA, but you were going to give me enough to play, and that you were there to watch how do people play. How do you play? Which leads me into my next question, which is way before the actual performance direction, when you're casting. In addition to the obvious, like, can they act? Is there something specific that you find yourself looking for or trying to bring out of the actors that you consistently are trying to find in actors? Is it a willingness to play? Is it a comfort in their bodies? Obviously those two things are necessary, but like, is there something else that you're looking for consistently, or is it different character by character?
I think a lot of it is flexibility. Right?
Adaptability is everything.
Because you just don't know. The script could get written overnight in a game. I always tell, when I teach classes, like, about how to audition, I tell people, like, don't lock into anything. I have this pet peeve when... because a lot of times we have to disguise the material, right? For security reasons. And so it's kind of like they'll come into the room and I'll be like, so let me tell you what this really is. It's a little bit different than what you got. And then if a person goes, could I just show you what I practiced? No, I don't think so. No, darling. Or even like hostility. Oh my God!
I was just going to ask if you have any like not horror stories, but more
I've got some.
On-set behavior and just...
all of that. I've seen everything.
I'm sure.
But like, I had one thing. A couple of things. Like, especially, I hate to say this, but the more famous they are, usually the often, not all the time, but it's more difficult. And I had a guy auditioning for me who had been in a TV show for many years, older guy. And I said, and so he literally was standing there like, blah, 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 blah. And I said, in this medium of performance capture, we just need a little bit more because it's called data, right? And so if your arms aren't moving at all, I don't have data, and I say this thing to people about motion capture, right? And like, it doesn't have to be overdone. No. But it's like an electric vehicle at a stoplight. What happens? It feels dead. It feels like it's off, right? So you always have to have
The motor.
a breath,
Yep,
a
yep.
little movement somewhere, but it can't be outside the moment, right? It's in the olden days, people did. People,
Yeah, people waved
jumped
their
up
hands
and down
around,
and made their
yeah.
hands. Whoever was moving the most,
Flappy
worked,
birds, yeah.
right? That we don't have to do that anymore. But I said you have to just move your arms a little bit. And he's like, well, that's not the kind of theater I like. I'm like, okay. I said, but that's really what I need. He's like, well, you want me to overact then?
Oh, gosh.
No.
And it was just like, I'm trying to help you, man.
Yeah, this is still an audition.
Still not gonna work.
So, like, you still don't have the job yet. So I'm trying to help you.
Or somebody comes in who I'm a fan of, and I'm like, hey, I'm a fan. And they're holding a Star Wars script, and they go, 2 Tonys, and I'm auditioning for this shit.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yikes.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I felt that in, like, the pit of my lower stomach that hurt my uterus. That was so bad. That was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I feel compassion. I feel compassion for somebody like that. I'm like, you should have retired. You know?
Yeah.
You're not enjoying it.
But it does bring up a point that I think would be interesting to discuss about kind of the Hollywood view of games and game performance and kind of where it was and how that's a little bit changing. Like, I don't know if you're finding this, but for myself, I think the Last of Us TV show really turned, I think it was the pandemic plus the Last of Us TV show really turned a corner for Hollywood, paying a little bit more attention and wanting a little bit more in, but it's still not necessarily in any kind of a way that is understanding of how we do things necessarily, from my perspective.
Well, I mean, to really cut to the chase, number one thing is because there's no residuals, right? And so it's a low totem pole in terms of income streams once the thing is done. So that's number one. Number two is on a glamour level, right? It's low.
It's not as sexy.
It's not as sexy. Example. Now, here's a good thing, and I've had a discussion about this. So the movie Tar, have you seen Tar?
Yeah.
Okay, so the scene at the end, right, where she's in the room with all the people in cosplay. Now, in the film, was that a good thing or a come down? How do you think that was portrayed?
Come down.
That's how I think too. But I've also talked to people who are like, "Oh no, my God, she's found a new audience," right? Like, but the thing is that people like us are like, "Oh
That's
my God,
amazing.
look at
Yes.
that! Look at that crowd! They're for her, right?
Yeah.
For video game music or something, right?
Yeah,
Or
right.
you know,
Absolutely.
That's so interesting.
there's definitely a digital divide. There
Yes,
definitely
yeah.
is a digital divide. And for people playing games, and now there's plenty of older people that play games, and certainly male and female, it's pretty evenly divided now. But there is a digital divide. You probably get this too, right? I go to family reunions, and people are like, "Are you still doing that theater thing?" I'm like, "Well, I do video games," and they're like, "What are you doing now?" I'm like, "I direct the actors," and they're like, "There's actors in video games?"
Yes.
It's
I thought it was animated,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and
you
you're
get
like,
that?
yeah, every year.
Yeah.
I'm very
still
lucky.
surprised.
My good Indian family, everybody has really done their homework to know what I do
so
and
cute.
understand it and
awesome.
enjoy it, even if they don't. Even my mom, who's 84 years old, is always asking questions about it. But what I love about that, about her being curious, is that I do, at least in my experience because I have my hands in so many different things right now, and there is a lot of crossover. I mean, I go to a Marvel premiere and there are gaming audiences on the, they're on the sidelines. There are people there. So it's a very cool combination and lifting of the respect, I think, for this as a medium.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it translates also to executives, to agents, to people who maybe are in more of positions of power than some of the artists that are working with them. I'm hoping that they start to realize this is such a powerful medium. This is such a satisfying medium as an actor.
Yeah.
As an actor, I have gotten to do things in video games that I never
Right.
would have gotten to do
Right.
Yeah.
if we were only focused on what I actually look like,
Yeah.
where I actually come from, any of those things.
Your teeny tiny
And
size.
My teeny
You're
tiny
not
size.
playing pretty
Yes.
girlfriend
Yeah,
or
like there's-
Doctor.
lady in the bar, lady in a club,
and also the
right? Bride's mother.
physicalization, all
Right.
of the things that you get to do. For me, it's like I think of it for me like I think of it for you, where this has become the culmination of all the things I love.
Yeah.
Because you can do it all. You can do it all in the volume.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you can do it there. And then the magic of video game making.
Yeah.
The performance director, the composer, the animators, everybody comes together and makes it something that transcends what one person could do by themselves. And I'm so grateful that we have people who live artistically like you do. And like Deborah does, bringing your talents,
art, yeah.
bringing
And
your
you
talents to this.
guys,
Well,
yeah.
thank you. But it's one of the reasons that we wanted to do this show was to really highlight the fact that there is so much artistry, not just technology, but artistry
So
Yes.
much.
in games. So much artistry. And any actor who looks down at video games has not had a chance to really be
To play.
to play either as a player or to play as an actor on the volume or even in the studio. There's so much to be done. There's so much richness there, and there's so much satisfaction. And on top of all of that, the community is so
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
They are so full of enthusiasm for the things that they love. So
Yeah.
we're really lucky.
We are lucky, and we're lucky that we have the ability to reach so many people.
Yeah.
You know, to try to kind of humanize these stories, and even if they're not about humans, even if they're about aliens, you know, the values that we bring to it, it's still real people, right? Aren't there actors in video games? Yes, there
Yes.
are, and they're real people.
Yeah, they're real people, and
We
they
are.
being in an interactive environment, you affect people's lives in a way that you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And I've heard from many
Yeah.
actors that a lot of the fans come to them with personal stories and accounts
Yep.
of how their lives were changed because they're interacting.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
they are stepping into the story. They have agency within the story. They're not just
Exactly.
watching it on a screen. Even if there are cutscenes, they are part of the story as players. And
Yeah.
I love the fact that people get to step into the story with you, and you get to invite them into the story with you,
Yeah.
which only happens if you've got great performances and all the entire team is creating those
Implemented
great
into the
performances.
game.
Exactly, implemented into the game.
And I tell people, I tell acting students, I'm like, people are like, is there anywhere, is there anything for me? I'm like, there's something for everybody in video games. I cast 80-year-old grandparents in Wolfenstein: The New Order, and they were so wonderful and delighted to be working.
Yes.
These actors that had been through World War II, right? Were on a digital set in a suit in markers and having a great time. And I think one of the things that I really is my mission now is craft, is passing that craft along. Why I'm
Thank
writing a
you.
book, and why I want to train actors, but also directors.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because our art form, the performance aspect of telling stories, is an oral tradition. You can't learn it from a book. You have to have a teacher. You have to be in a room with other people. You have to get feedback. You have to try stuff. You have to talk to other people, and you have to talk to other people about the most sensitive topics and gain their trust. And, it is an art form, and then there is a craft. And it looks easy, but it's just knowing how you think something should go is not directing. And that's how you gain the trust of actors. You don't try to hammer a performance out of them. You don't treat them like a floor polishing machine that you rented for 8 hours, and so you're going to run it the full 8 hours. And they're not puppets that you tell them how to say the lines. You do your work to your director's homework to give them the tools to act the scene, to bring their gifts to the scene. And you tell them what's under the scene, what the bones of the scene are, where this scene fits in the story, and what they help them sort out what the characters are trying to accomplish, and then say, go. Right?
You're making me cry.
I know. Well, thank
Because
you.
this is the stuff. This is why we do what we do, because getting to really connect with each other and have everybody getting to shine in the way that they are part of the storytelling process, and being able to come together and do it in such an organic and respectful and loving and passionate way. Like that's why you're so good at what you do. You're just extraordinary that way.
People have, just like gamers, just like people have about gamers, that, you're just a 16-year-old boy in your parents' basement, sitting there doing nothing, right? That's the cliche. And it is so not that. Sure, there are some people like that, but, it's so not that. The gaming community is not that at all. Same thing about actors. Oh, they just want attention, right? Actors are really narcissists who want attention. Actors are people whose art form gives them the confidence to get up in front of other people and have a profound experience. And there's something, as an actor, that is so, you step into that, right? You're channeling something. You're channeling a character. You're channeling an experience with other people that's not your own, but you're channeling yourself through it. It's so profound, right? It's such a profound art form to practice. And it's why, if you really do it well and you love it, you'll do it. You'll do anything. You don't care about money, right? You'll go into this crazy career, and it's like, it'd be great if I make money, but I'll still act. Give me a chance, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tom, we could talk with you for hours about this, and unfortunately, we don't. We have to let you go. But can we tell the people at home where they can find you on the interwebs and just ways they can get in touch with
you can find my website on tomkeegan.net and on Instagram, Tom K Studios.
Nice.
So basically that's where to find me.
Excellent. And if you ever get a chance to take a class with Tom, run, don't walk, make it happen. It is a wonderful, heart-filling experience. It's not just good for your craft, it's good for your heart.
And thank you for being willing to share your craft.
Oh
We're
my God,
very
I love
excited.
talking about it.
Yes.
Thank you. And I just say that let's use our talents and our gifts and things to make a better world.
Yay.
Let's hold
Here.
that end of suffering.
Yes.
Hear, hear.
Good note to end on.
Excellent note to end on. And so we're going to end on it, you guys. This has been Character Select. Please share this episode, because I guarantee you there are people out there who are going to want to hear what Tom has had to say. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Your friends will thank you for sending it to them. So please share this with them. And we will talk with you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Character Select is recorded at Slap Studios, LA. Executive producers Rick Barrio Dill, Anjali Bhimani, and Julia Bianco Schoeffling. Producer Bree Coorey. Assistant Amanda Mack. Intro animation by Bree Coorey and Larissa Donahue. And theme song by Rick Barrio Dill. The views and opinions stated on this show are those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their employers or any companies they work with. If you have questions for the show or suggestions for future episodes or guests, send us an email at careselectpod@gmail.com. That's CHAR selectpod@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.